one. This is called the Do's and Don'ts of Palestine. Now, are you sitting in the back? It's like you're like saying, hey, guy from out of town, please straighten your voice. If you come closer, I won't feel like I have to project to the blue thing in the back. Organizer sitting on the ledge 3,000 yards away. You think this is a football game? Or what do you guys do here? Do you think it's like a curling match?
Bleed football.
Canada.
Bleed football here.
Really? And I'm just happy that I think there's global warming now because I'm here and it's like 3 Celsius. I have no idea what that means, but I'm not wrapped in a blanket. I'm not like. I saw. It was like, I think it was like -30, but feels like holy shit. Like it was like crazy online. Like it was like, it feels like icicles are jabbing you in the face. And I was like, I want none of this. I was like, can planes be in areas that cold? Anyway, I'm American, we're kind of dumb. Pass it off on that. So the next poem is called The Do's and Don'ts of Palestine, and then I'll go into, because I don't like the war in Iraq or Afghanistan either, or a lot of other issues, so we'll talk about that. It's called The Do's and Don'ts of Palestine. There are certain things that you are not supposed to say, and you'll hear a lot of those words, and this is supposed to be a sarcastic poem. It's just kind of funny, like, right, like, people are annoying. Like, every time you have a conversation, it's like, blah, 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 dumb stuff, and you're like, oh, why don't you just shut up? I want to talk to you. So this is called The Do's and Don'ts of Palestine, and this is a response to stupid people. Not just one, but a lot. There's a lot of stupidity going on. Like, oh my God, don't talk about Japan. The girl, she went to like, no, anybody see that video? It's got like 3 million hits. She was like talking smack about like Japan. And it was like, oh my God, like, who does that? Erase that video, what is wrong with you? Why don't you put a white hood on and be like, oh, like, no, you're crazy. They're crazy people. They like to wear it. There's like a resurgence of like the KKK in America. It's like, let's wear racism as a badge of honor. Like, let's not. There's a reason that shit went down in the 1800s. So this is called Do's and Don'ts of Palestine. Oh, I forgot the first line. There's another, one more video. Has anybody seen Hate Comes to Orange County? Yeah. Where they're like, go back to where you came from. Yeah. Go back to this, like Muslim people like going into like a fundraiser and it's like everybody's like chanting and it's like, Muhammad. I was like, wow. I was like, yeah, you really look indigenous to Kentucky. Okay, so sorry. The Do's and Don'ts of Palestine. I was like, oh, you're from the Netherlands? Okay, you settle down on the Do's and Don'ts of Palestine. Don't call it genocide. We don't want to offend anyone. If we offend them, they'll never listen to us. We have to be reasonable. 1,400 is just a number. No names, no death. We want peace and negotiations. Don't mention Zionism. If you mention Zionism, they'll call you anti-Semitic and people will believe them. Don't cite Palestinian sources. No one would believe you. I wouldn't believe you. Trust Israeli sources. Don't ever be angry. If you're angry, they'll call you angry. If they're angry, well, everyone will call them understandably emotional. We have to be pragmatic. Pragmatism is not a euphemism for concessions, although it may feel that way. Don't mention Allah or martyrs. It reminds them of Al-Qaeda and 9/11. It's not your job to fix their ignorance. Don't talk about refugees, boycott, or a one-state solution. If we want to win, we have to compromise. The road to peace is just ahead. Please, don't make analogies that include the Holocaust, Nazis, or the Warsaw Ghetto. Only Israelis are allowed to do this when discussing wars on Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and Iran. Don't talk about Haifa, Jaffa, Safed, or where your family's from. But if you do, nod when random people say they love Israel. It doesn't matter where you came from. You can't actually go back. Don't. Just don't. And that'll lead to doing. Wow. I haven't slept in like 18 months. But here's the thing. So this book, Poetic Injustice, Writings on Resistance in Palestine, it's lovely. My mom loves it. My mom said this is the coolest thing to come out since toaster ovens. I don't know if any of you have toaster ovens, but they make really neat grilled cheese sandwiches. You're like, oh my God, that tastes like it's just out of the oven. It's because it's a toaster oven. My mom said no such thing, but she likes it. What was I going to say about it? Oh, so I finished up the book like 2 days before the tour started. And so I'm souped up on soup and Sudafed. And so I want to do some poems from the book. Oh, how many of you guys like the war in Iraq? Right, great. I did 5 shows. One person was like, whoa, I was like, what? I was like, I hope you had a cough. Because there's always that weird guy. Yeah, Palestine, but still like, you know, like there's one issue people, not really a fan of those. You know, it's like the war in Iraq sucks. That Afghanistan war, however. So different. Okay, so this is called Iraq. I'm having this conversation with this Arab guy. And it's like, hey, you're Arab. And it's like, oh, that's weird. Hey, I'm Arab. And you think like, you know, both brown, we're getting along. It's like, we're cousins, right? Or brothers. I don't know how it would work. And so he was like, hey, like, we need to end the war in Iraq. And I was like, yeah, we do. And he's like, because it costs us way too much money. And I was like, no. We have these things in America called liberals. They're very annoying. So I was like, what about that whole, like, I don't know, mass graves, million dead people thing? And it's like, oh, that's weird. And the liberal line in America is that, like, we need to pull out of Iraq because it costs us too much money and it's not in our interest. And it's like, shouldn't not mass murdering 1 million people be in our interest? I mean, even if it's just one of those human interests. So I wrote this poem basically to be like, you're dumb. Everybody thinks I'm so angry on Facebook. I'm not angry. Do I seem angry? No. Maybe inside the poem you're like, oh, he's really coming close to my face. But like, besides that, I think I'm pretty lax. Okay, anger. Yoga. I need to do yoga. I can find my center quicker. The downward dog. I don't know. It's the only thing I ever remember from yoga. It hurts though. I've tried it once. That's not supposed to ache, is it? Iraq has a $79 billion surplus. We spent more than $1 trillion on this war. More than 4,000 of our troops have died. God knows how many are coming back limbless. Others with post-traumatic stress disorder. This is not making us safer. This is not making us safer. This is not within our interests. This is what he says to me. An Arab American. An American Arab. An American who happens to be Arab. I look back at him. I'm not some mainstream CNN producer, and 3 Iraqis have died since our conversation started. I'm not an American. I'm a human being. I don't write poems about Kevlar vests or USO tours. And don't get me wrong, I support the troops. The ones in Iraq, Palestine, Afghanistan, Northern Ireland, South Africa, and Birmingham, and not all their bullets fit in guns. They've written poetry and music and literature an oppressor could never dream of. I do. I feel bad that I can't afford my new iPhone, but I've yet to hear you utter that more than 1 million Iraqis have been slaughtered in this war, that their $79 billion surplus can't get them electricity or stability, that the surge has failed, Baghdad has been cleansed of Sunnis, and more than 5 million have been made refugees. I'm sorry that you can't afford your cross-country road trip because gas costs too much money, and the US dollar can't get you past Go and Monopoly. Yeah. We wrap ourselves around 50 stars and lapel pins while civilians and occupied nations die because of our policy. If that makes me anti-American, hood me, rip me from my home, and waterboard me in a Guantanamo prison, I'm not looking for the American dream or your silly notion of exceptionalism. You think because you love a country, it excuses jingoism. Your so-called rights and interests matter more than the countless deaths of others, and you know what? I'm not going to call you a sellout or Arab Uncle Tom. I'm going to call you what you are, a shitty human being, one that chides right, invokes civil movements, all while taking a step backwards. Yes, Iraq has cost us $1 trillion, but there's no currency to replace your thirst for hegemony. I'm not American. I'm a human being. If that's so hard for you to stomach, maybe you should grab a plane ticket with your frequent flyer miles and move the hell out of my country. Yeah.
It's his fault.
I'm not even American. I don't even want shirts. Oh, more. Okay. Jersey Shore. Anybody watch that show?
No.
Okay, here's the thing. You do like Palestine 100 hours a week, you have to do something like really dumb 2 hours a week. And that's where I include like Top Chef and American Idol, and sometimes Jersey Shore, or Bridezilla comes, okay. I've seen Bridezilla before and I was like, wow, that is the craziest show that should have never existed. But anyway, I do a lot of the hair gel. I'm not so much situation, I'm a little more like Snooki. People get that more in the US. What am I going to do? Oh, let's read some poetry. Let's try to use the mic for this one though, because my voice starts to go. It's like, why is this guy shouting at me for an hour? Nobody asked you to come. Just kidding. We can try this. It's not optional. I don't know. I don't know what I want to talk about. I rant a lot. I think I could talk to like a wall for an hour, just sharing thoughts with the camera. Please don't put any of this online. I tell people, I'm like, yeah, don't put my jokes online, because then they take it out of context and they're like, see, he's crazy. And I was like, yeah, but that has nothing to do with like politics. So, because I didn't write a set list. Okay, I'm going to do a poem for Gaza next, and then I'm going to read some. So the book is, it's an 80-page book, and it comes with a full-length CD, so it comes with 15 performance tracks. And then there's also 48 three-line poems in the book. There's a lot of poetry in the book. But then there's the performance pieces as well. But there's 48 three-line poems split up into 4 different sections, each one to signify one of my displaced grandparents in 1948. So I'll read like a few of those later, and then a couple of poems. This is called a poem for Gaza. And it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, 1,400 people were slaughtered in 22 days as they were locked in an open-air prison. And it's, I mean, the poem itself is pretty self-explanatory, and people have done a lot about it. So this is called a poem for Gaza. I never knew death until I saw the bombing of a refugee camp. Craters filled with disfigured elbows and splattered torsos, but no sign of a face. The only impression a fading scream. I never understood pain until a 7-year-old girl clutched my hand, stared up at me with soft brown eyes waiting for answers. I didn't have any. I had dry pens in my back pocket that couldn't fill pages of understanding or resolution. In her other hand, she held the key to her grandmother's house, but I couldn't unlock the cell that caged her older brothers. They said, we slingshot dreams so the other side will feel our father's presence. A craftsman built homes in areas where no one was building, and when he fell, he was silent. A .50 caliber bullet tore through his neck, shredding his vocal cords, too close to the wall. His hammer must have been a weapon. He must have been a weapon, encroaching on settlement hills and demographics. So his daughter studies mathematics. 7 explosions times 8 bodies equals 4 congressional resolutions. 7 Apache helicopters times 8 Palestinian villages equals silence in a second Nakba. Our birth rate minus their birth rate equals 1 seat and 400 villages re-erected. 1 state plus 2 peoples, and she can't stop crying. Never knew revolution or the proper equation. Tears at the pages with her fingertips, searching for answers but only has teachers. Looks to the sky and sees stars at David demolishing squalor with hellfire missiles. She thinks back words and memories of his last hug before he turned and fell. Now she pumps dirty water from wells while settlements divide and conquer. And her father's killer sits beachfront with European vernacular. She thinks back words while they think back words of obscene notions and indigenous confusion. This is our land, she said. She's 7 years old. This is our land, she said. And she doesn't need history books or a schoolroom teacher. She has these walls, this sky, her refugee camp. She doesn't know the proper equation, but she sees my dry pens, no longer waiting for my answers, just holding her grandmother's key, searching for ink.
Very good.
So I'll keep in that kind of tune. This book is dedicated to my teta, my grandmother, and unfortunately she passed away before she could ever see it. And when I was working on it, she wasn't